Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. On behalf of Juritrust CLE Konsult, I welcome you to today's program. I am Lilian Okolo, and I am delighted to be your moderator for today. I'll be anchoring this section along with my esteemed colleague, Ifeanyi Ewuziem, and say welcome to you once again. And for those that are not familiar with who Juritrust CLE Consult are, I would like to just do a brief introduction. The dedicated continuous legal education arm of Juritrust Center for Social Legal Research and Documentation. And our core mission is to empower legal practitioners with cutting-edge knowledge, practical skills, and a forward-thinking perspective essential for navigating our ever-evolving legal landscape. We're a legal resource and we encourage everyone to please be active and participate in this session as it's going to be a very interesting topic. We have with us seasoned facilitators who are experts in the field as well. Today's agenda, we are dealing with AI and legal proceedings. That's artificial intelligence and legal proceedings. As we all know, the legal landscape is evolving and a lot of things are changing. We're having emerging issues and AI is one of them. So we felt it's necessary to address this topic. So we are going to consider practical areas as to how AI is being utilized by lawyers in terms of legal research, document review and e-discovery, contract analysis and management, as well as litigation support. So we have three topics which we are going to meticulously explore, which include AI and trial proceedings, ethics and AI in adjudication, as well as governance and AI standards, looking at models for court rules. So I'll be introducing our speakers to join us on this program. And our first speaker is Mr. Olugbemi Jaiyebo. And he will be taking the topic AI and trial proceedings. Mr. Olugbemi Jaiyebo serves as a researcher at Juritrust Administration of Criminal Justice Academy in Abuja. He is a Nigeria and the United States. He formerly held the position of director at Hope Community Development Corporation in Teaneck, New Jersey, and was a member of the board of directors at Legal Services, NYC. In his career, Mr. Jaiyebo has contributed to legal education through teaching and research appointments at various institutions, including Obafemi Awolowo University, the University of Lagos, Columbia University in the City of New York, Osun State University, and Achievers University, Owo. He is also the Director of Studies at Juritrust Center for Social Legal Research and Documentation. So I would need you with a warm welcome to join me in welcoming Mr. Olugbemi Jaiyebo, who is going to be our first speaker for today. So Mr. Jaiyebo, we welcome you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Please permit me to share my screen.
Mr. Jaiyebo.
Yeah. Yes, I hope my screen is showing on your side. So for
yes,
the next,
you can see your screen, sir.
Thank you. For the next 15-20 minutes, I'll just be sharing some thoughts on AI fundamentals and trial proceedings. We'll look at some core AI tools, AI in legal research, e-discovery, and preparation for litigation. I begin by saying there is no exact definition of artificial intelligence, but one that makes some sense to me says AI is equal A plus A. That is, AI is equal autonomy and adaptivity. Autonomy being the ability of the machine to perform tasks in complex environments without human guidance, and adaptivity being its capacity to learn from experience to improve itself. And any application of AI must possess these two properties. And in order for the machine to learn, there must be the acquisition of mass data. And I want you to take note of these events that are occurring in Nigeria. Um, April April this year, the Competition and Consumer Protection Tribunal dismissed the appeal lodged by Meta against the $220 million penalty imposed in September last year against Meta by the Federal Agency for Consumer Protection. And the problem was they were sharing data illegally. They weren't following the procedures laid down by law for data sharing. And July, just a few weeks ago, July this year, the agency for the National Identity Management Commission announced that um, the NIN database had grown by 7 million in the first half of this year, and they're looking towards a 95% target in a short while. What that means is that a lot of data is being collected. In Nigeria, the government is the biggest data collector. Unfortunately, the government doesn't have the capacity to process the data. So private entities become the processors, and many of those private entities are even foreign entities. So from these two facts that I've laid out, there is a mass collection of data because that is a raw material required for artificial intelligence. And just last week Tuesday, in fact, this week Tuesday, Etana announced that they're beginning the first full stack AI center in Eleko area. And on Wednesday this week, the MD of the World Bank was in Abuja, and she confirmed the World Bank support for Nigeria's 90,000 kilometer fiber optic project. Now, this is one of the largest of such projects in the world. That just shows the amount of, of focus that will be on Nigeria in terms of data collection, because we have over 100 million people in Nigeria, and at least 70% of the set of the people in Nigeria have access to phones, which is the biggest source of data collection. So the question of artificial intelligence has come to stay. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And for us lawyers, the earlier we get on board, I think the better it's going to be for us, because all around us, we already find the manifestation of artificial intelligence. So the need for legal advice with respect to artificial intelligence related matters will arise. And even within our profession, we're also seeing an increase in the use of artificial intelligence. And so I say here that the train has left the station and there is no return. And I want us to identify where we're at, because some people might still be in the place where they want to maintain AI abstinence. I call it AI abstinence, not wanting to get involved. But you can only avoid it if you don't have a smartphone, if you don't have an email, then maybe you can avoid. But if you have an email, then even if you're not actively participating, you're already dragged into it. If you have a smartphone, even if you don't intend to, you're already sucked in. So no matter how, because you observe that most of us, our emails are not paid for, but those emails are not actually free. So the email you have, which you don't pay for, you have exchanged for having the email, you have exchanged access to your data. And I say here that we don't go on Google to search. Once we get on Google, it's Google who is searching us, who is watching us, who is observing us, who is tracing all of our movements and harvesting information that will be used for artificial intelligence. If you do a simple search today on Google, just search Juritrust. It in 10 years ago, it will have just given you a list of websites to choose from that where those names are cited. But today, if you do a search on Google on Juritrust, beyond the website that it will show you, it will also give you a narrative. It will tell you something about Juritrust. That narrative is powered by artificial intelligence, and there is no going back on it. So, for those of us who are on the level of abstinence, um, our chances are next to zero, especially if we have emails and smartphones. Now, some of us are not really abstaining, but we're not too actively involved, so we use AI as and when needed. Maybe as an administrative assistant, you want to check something out, and then again, you might not even use um, a, a tool that's on the face of it, AI. You may want to go into Google or use some other search engines. And then sometimes you might want to go on Law Pavilion, because a lot of work done by Law Pavilion is also AI powered. Or maybe you have access to Nexus, which are pure legal tools. But all those tools also are now being powered by artificial intelligence. So really, in digital-based research, then most of us might be using AI as for minimal assistance. But research suggests that for those of us who use it even not avidly, that we are able to save at about 5 hours a week by moving away from manual searches and manual legal research into AI powered research. But some other people are more friendly with AI, and I call them the class two, those who choose to use AI as a creative partner. There are so much opportunities embedded in artificial intelligence, and it doesn't eliminate the human skill. And we're going to talk about the enhanced skills that we lawyers must have, even in order to optimally benefit from artificial intelligence. But for starters, you can use AI again, like I said, to do your basic research. We're called learned gentlemen, and the public expects us to know something about everything. And you get into some terrains in which they're not just familiar territory. And you can easily flip into AI to provide you with answers, quick answers to certain questions in areas in which you don't have full expertise. And but I want to say that you will benefit more from AI if you can develop competence in the areas in which you're asking questions. And then we'll get to that shortly. But one of the things that happens if you can make AI a creative partner is that it will do your dirty work for you. It will gather materials for you, and then you can now use your experience, your expertise to decipher and determine the things that you find useful. Now, the truth about AI is that it's like you sitting down. It's like maybe I have an election petition matter before me, and I'm thinking, what should I do? And just emerging, I convene a conference. I call Chief Olanipekun. He comes. I call Chief Olujimi. I call Prince Latif Fagbemi, and I call maybe five other sons, and I bring them to one room, and I'm sharing the scenarios of the election with them, and I'm asking from them, what are my options to move forward? I mean, I've brought into that room the best brains in that subject matter. That's what happens when you use AI. Because what they have done, like I said, it's an amassing of enormous data from across the world. So they go into the digital space. Whatever information is on that subject, it pulls it from Harvard, from Oxford, from Unilag, from IFE, from Osun State University, from anybody who has done any work on a particular subject. It puts it together, and depending now, it now depends on how you can interact with that tool to get the best from the mass of material that is embedded in the tool. So what AI does is it sometimes gives you access to the experience of centuries, to aged instructions on the various items that you are searching for. Now, what we have noticed today is that more law firms, in fact, law firms are moving away from just using AI for administration or AI for creative ideas. They are now mainstreaming AI into their law firms. And that's what I call the AIification of the legal industry. It's fast on the go, is fast um, taking place. Now, it could be more in Western countries, but even some law firms in Nigeria who do have access to service multinational companies are left with no choice but to mainstream artificial intelligence into their law practice. And what has happened is, because of the market, you're now having a lot of startups who are designing AI tools just for law practice. You know, and when we come to the issue of tools, many of the tools that we're going to talk about are even the generic. They can serve you for almost any purpose. But we are now having more specialized law tools, law AI tools, so that you don't necessarily just have to use the generic ones. If you have the resources, you are able to either purchase those ready-made tools, or if you really have the resources, you can bring experts in that can now develop within your internal system your own peculiar custom-made AI suits. Now, in terms of fundamentals, it's important for us, since we are lawyers, to talk about the legal framework. And the first thing, the first bus stop for us would be the Legal Practitioners Act, because that's what governs lawyers in Nigeria. And secondarily, the rules of professional conduct. And in a few minutes, you're going to see the importance of these two pieces of legislation, because the Legal Practitioners Act determines the questions of discipline, and the question of discipline which might arise by if there are certain infractions. So that there could be ways in which AI can be deployed that could bring us into professional liability. Beyond the um, for professional regulations, the Data Protection Act. Now, this is a new legislation in Nigeria. What we had before was just a subsidiary legislation. But now that we have the Act, which is a primary legislation, a lot of things are changing. Now, the drive towards data collection, data processing is a global agenda. So, I know, as a matter of fact, that the World Bank gave Nigeria some monies to facilitate this process. So all this issue of NIN, BVN, and all this digitalization of passports, digitalization of driver's licenses, they are all opportunities, avenues for mass data collection that gets deployed into artificial intelligence. So the Data Protection Act is critical. We all have to get familiar because when we collect data, when we collect the personal information from our clients, then we owe some obligations to those clients in terms of how their data is handled and who has access to such data. Then the Copyright Act is also a legislation that should be taken careful note of. And we're having litigation across the world, in Europe and a lot of them in the United States, in which producers and publishers are challenging the rights of the AI companies to use copyrighted material without permission. And in some instances, they're challenging the use of pirated materials. So we're going to see in the next months and years to come how the conflict between AI and copyright gets resolved. But in Nigeria, we've not had a lot of litigation along those lines, but they're going to come sooner than later. Um, the thing about data and data protection, data privacy, is that it has cross-border implications. So if a person is processing data of certain of Europeans in Nigeria, the person needs to get familiar with the European Union Artificial Intelligence Act. The same thing if a person is processing Nigerian data of Nigerians outside Nigeria, the person has potentials for liability within the legal system. So the question of data is heavily cross-border. And it's within that context that I'd brought your attention to the European Union AI Act. And that's the first and the most comprehensive regulation on artificial intelligence. Every other jurisdiction is still struggling to have a proper grip on AI, even to get a proper grip on data, talk less of AI. Nigeria has a national AI strategy, but there's no legislation as of now. It will be of interest for us as lawyers to pay attention to the NBA has regulations, not regulations. There are guidelines. There's an NBA guideline on artificial intelligence that was released last year. So it would be nice for lawyers to pay careful attention to the NBA guidelines on use of artificial intelligence in the legal profession. That's 2024. Okay. For those of us who work with the CAC, there's been a lot of complaints and issues in the past 1 month or so because the CAC introduced the CRP. That's the so now you don't have to walk into the CAC to register a company. You don't have to have an agent. You can sit in your office. So there's an attempt to use artificial intelligence for the registration of companies, and there's been some hiccups, but that just shows you that the train really has left the station. So the CSC is still struggling to fix the hiccups, and they've pushed the full some commencement dates into September. Uh, we'll see how that goes, but I don't think there's going to be any retreat on it. They just have to make it work, and we hope. Although one interesting thing was in an attempt of CAC to defend what they were doing, they came up with some information and said that on one single day they had, was it 5,000 persons who used the tool, that would have ordinarily would have taken them 2 weeks, but it was done in one day with AI. And so I have here a list of several tools for those for the LexisNexis Law Pavilion. These are hardcore law tools. I mean, if you have access to LexisNexis, you have to prepare for litigation, there are so many tools you can use that will save you time. The same thing with Law Pavilion. You can go in there, ask questions, interact with the tools, and it generates answers and it just makes research much easier. And I have a host of others there um, that you could play with, and it's really interesting what can come out of these tools. Now, let me go. Now, for those who are in academic research, what I try to do for this portion is to try and cater for um, the academics and even for those for in-house counsel. So for those in academic research, now you can use AI either as a research assistant or even AI that's not what they now call deep research. And all these tools are there. And just within the first 3 months of this year, we've had a churn out of numerous tools that do deep research because they found out that even though the AI tools are good for research, but when it comes to academic research, there are some peculiarities to it. You have to do literature review, you have to do a concept note, you have to do some analysis. Now, all these tools are, and so what they've done is they're making AI to learn from experience. So when there are complaints, when there are errors, it begins to learn from it and improve on itself. So for those who are in academic industry, then you can use AI either as a research assistant or use it for very in-depth research, which is what they call deep research AI agents. Now, for those of us who are in regular practice and we if you're in litigation, at some point you either have to do a motion or you have to do your summation. So brief writing, AI is a ready tool. Now, if you have a good tool, and I have here an example of the situation of admissibility of confessional statements. Up till um, last year, we had two lines of cases. Some said that if the statement was not taken in accordance with AJA, then the statement would be inadmissible. Another line of cases said that what governs admissibility is the Evidence Act and not the Administration of Criminal Justice Act. So once there's compliance with the Evidence Act, that the document will be admissible, even though there was a non-compliance with AJA. And these decisions were at the Court of Appeal level. So if you went into an AI tool, if it's a good tool, and you punched in Charles and FRN, for example, that was maybe in 2023, it should tell you that Charles against FRN says that there must be compliance with AJA for the confessional statement to be admissible. But if it's a good tool, the tool should tell you that, yeah, but there is another line of cases that say otherwise, and should refer you to INAG and state, and vice versa. So if you, for example, type in Lisa local against state, it should tell you that, well, it doesn't matter how you take your confessional statement so long as you comply with the Evidence Act. But it should tell you on the flip side that, however, there are cases that say that there must be compliance. Now, if you go into an AI tool today and you put in INAG against state, it should tell you that INAG against state allows you to tender your confessional statement even if it's not compliant with ACJA. But it should give you a footnote that that decision has, however, been overruled by FRN and NIGFO. So the advantage of so what this does is, because sometimes you might come into a territory where you're not familiar with the latest case law, and you just know maybe one popular case, and you type that case in, the AI tool should be able to tell you that that case is no longer valid and subsisting, that that case has been overruled, and should indicate to you the latest position of the law. So I mean that's one thing. I mean, if I've move away from an area of law, and I have to come back to it, I just put in one locus classicus, and then the tool will tell me that that is still good law, or that is no longer good law. So I don't have to manually go through all the law reports. I don't have to manually go through indexes and begin to say, okay, subject matter, what is litigation, with a proper prompt to the AI tool. I can know whether that decision is still valid and subsistent. In our practice in Nigeria, um, we don't do too much discovery, except but in election cases, yeah, there is that a lot of that is done, and but for general litigation, it's not too much. But there are AI tools that are designed just for discovery, because before we had the AI, what used to happen is sometimes, especially when maybe if it's a medical negligence issue that has to do with a pharmaceutical product, and the producer of the product is being sued, and they want to see what the trial test results were, and whether all the protocols were followed, whether all the precautions were taken. Sometimes you have to download an entire server, and you might need like 300 lawyers working 16 hours a day for 9 months just to go through and identify the material that are relevant to the litigation. We don't have to do all that again. In actual fact, in some jurisdictions, some people just live on document review work, because constantly, when if you had any big litigation, there had to be document review, and you're on document review exercise sometimes for 2 years, sometimes 3 years, and you're working 12 hours, 14 hours, 16 hours a day, and there are hundreds of lawyers who are hired to do that. But today, with AI, you put in the keywords, and the tool does the search, no matter how massive the documents are. It does it in far lesser time than human beings will have done it. And even today, we also have tools for deposition. And that's also a line of practice that is not too heavily utilized within Nigerian litigation practice. But I know we're going to get there. But these tools are available in which while you are deposing the other party, your AI tool will be giving you um, questions to ask, giving you tips and leads in terms of how to proceed and engage with the witness that you are deposing. Yeah. But the biggest issue for us as lawyers is client confidentiality. If we are going to, whichever layer in which you engage, at whichever level you engage AI, if it's for you trying to review a contract, do not put the personal information of your client into the system. Because, like I said, a, the second characteristic of the tool is to learn from experience. So every data that gets into that system becomes a learning tool. It uses it to learn, it uses it to improve itself. So you have to be very careful as to how you punch in your client's personal information, into the system. So don't just don't just tell, don't just copy and drop there a document, say, review this contract for me. What are the loopholes in this contract? With the names, addresses, telephone numbers of your clients in the document. So you have to do some redacting before you put the information into the system. So that is even at the level of those of us who just use AI as administrative assistant. Whatever you are putting in, be careful, because what will happen is once you put it in there, when another person asks a similar question, you will be surprised that some of the personal information of your client can pop up in the AI providing answers for other people who generate inquiries and questions along those lines. Excuse me. So it's important that you carefully um, edit the things you'll be putting online for AI input. Now, if you are mainstreaming AI into your law practice, now you need to have very clear agreements. Now, if it's one thing again, now if you're using tools, then you're just buying the tools, but you have to be careful again what you put in. But if you're getting somebody to develop your own internal system, then you need very clear agreements on data protection, agreements that are in compliance with the Data Protection Act. And you have to ensure that you maintain as much control over the data as possible. And the data, there must be a clause that the data must only be used for the things you expressly provide them for. Because we find that what we are noticing is that many institutions, and this is a global phenomenon, that government gathers data. They tell you register for NIN, and you put everything, your name, address, your father's name, your mother's maiden name, your mother's name, date of birth, employment history. They get all these things. And then what happens is so the private entities now interact with government because the government doesn't have the infrastructure to turn that raw material into the end product. So they have to engage the private sector for that conversion process. But what we are now finding is that the private players do not just convert the raw material for the government end product. Is now being is used for many other things. And so the issue of what the information um, was divulged for becomes a critical issue. Even in the UK, there was a time when medical information was, because you know that AI is huge in the health sector. When medical information of people who had to subscribe to a particular government service was now used, you know, for training of AI in just for to perfect some treatments, even though that sounded like a good end purpose, but that was not the reason for which the information was divulged to the health management agency. So you have to be careful that what your client gives information for is what the AI company utilizes for, if you choose to have internal AI systems in your law firm. Now, I'm saying here that, you know, one of the problems with solo practice is they're sometimes very lonely. But with AI, you have a partner. Some tools are called co-counsel, some are called co-pilots. You have a partner. You can do anything with AI. We were editing a book just a few months ago, and the one of the co-editors brought my attention to a particular citation And I told him that, no, that citation is correct. He said, no, it's not correct. But I knew that he was telling me it was not correct, not because he knew, but because AI told him it's not correct. So I told him, I know what we do. Tell AI that you challenge the answer, that you think AI is wrong in the response. And went back and forth. Eventually, AI found that we were correct and said and apologized. So what you want to do is you can go back and forth with your tool, ask it questions, challenge the position it has given to you. You can debate with it, go back and forth, and you're going to have a wonderful product. And sometimes you can just extract ideas. Just give a prompt and give it, and then let's extract ideas. Tell it to give a draft of an agreement or a draft motion on a particular thing, and it will give you a draft, and you can now use your experience, your expertise to improve on it, to reject some things or to accept them. And then you can do role playing. You can tell AI that, okay, what if you are defense counsel? That's if you are for the plaintiff. What if you are defense counsel in a matter involving A, B, C, D? What defense will you come up if the claims of the plaintiff were C, EFG? And AI will give you a product which can also help you see the matter from the side of the other counsel. So you can bounce ideas of AI, and you can even ask it that, what do you think the outcome of this litigation will be, given these facts and given these arguments? And it will go into the system and check that, well, having reviewed 5 cases, that he thinks that you don't have a chance of success. Or having reviewed 15 cases, it seems that you have a fairly good chance of succeeding. And if you are in-house counsel, you can use AI to develop a board of directors. And you can in preparing for a board meeting, you can get AI to say, okay, you, Director A, you are an you are antagonistic, you're against these ideas. Director B, you are neutral. Director C, you are in favor. And then put your facts before the board of your virtual board of directors, and they'll go back and forth, and it will generate for you the arguments of each of the directors, and that can better prepare you for your board meetings. So for in-house counsels, and even though maybe you're the only lawyer in the office, if the small in-house legal department, you don't have to be lonely. You can use AI as a co-counsel and create your virtual board of directors and get some input from AI. Now you have to watch out for what they call hallucinations. That's the problem we have with AI. And we have several cases. In fact, this July alone, I have seen about 25 cases of court cases where AI generated fake citations. So you have to be careful. And I cited here for you a research that was conducted that says even the best tools in 1 out of 6 instances might give you a wrong citation. But again, in learning from that error, what most tools now do, and that's why if you put it in, if you're doing academic research or if you're doing a brief, you tell it to provide for you the citations, to provide for you the references. So what most tools do now is that when they give it a narrative, they also indicate for you which of those narratives was taken from a case or taken from a particular literature. Then it's now left for you to go confirm, to search and be sure that those citations or derivations are accurate. And I cited here a case that happened last week where the prosecutor found that cases cited by the defense attorney were non-existent. And even one case was said that had been overruled 40 years ago. But that was what AI found. But this attorney did not search, did not verify. And in India, in Kerala High Court, they have a policy now that the judges are not allowed to use AI tools on their work, and that was because of excessive use of the tool. So we have to be careful. So what AI
Um,
would do for those of us who are good editors,
Mr.
but there's some
Jaibo,
persons.
sorry
Yes,
to interject.
yes,
Mr. Jaibo, yes, please.
yes.
We really appreciate what you are doing and saying so far. But please, you would have to round up in the next 5 minutes, sir. Please, if you can just
Okay, I'll
help
round up in the
us
next 3 minutes. I'll round up in the next three
round up in
minutes.
the next 5 minutes, so
Okay,
we could take
okay.
questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. That's good. Yeah. So
Thank you so much, sir.
what this phenomenon is doing is that those who have an eye for details, an eye for error, they are going to make a lot of money because you need verification. You need to check the citations to be sure that those cases are actually true. And another thing with AI is what you call deepfakes. I mean, you can. So the issue of manipulation in AI is an area in which we have to develop expertise. So when it comes so evidence law in the next few years will be radically different. It will be difficult for anyone to assert expertise in evidence law without a deep knowledge of artificial intelligence in the sooner than later, because there is a big problem of manipulation of digital evidence. Okay, let me rush through concluding thoughts. Familiarize yourself in order to be competent in supervising the AI work products. So that you need to be good in your area, so that when it gives you wrong information, you can spot it. So you cannot use AI in an area in which you have no clue, because if it's wrong, you can correct it. So you see, you benefit more when you have good knowledge in the area in which you are deploying the AI to. But you must also understand how AI works so that you can checkmate it. But the opportunities are enormous. The more important thing is you must know how to ask it questions. You must engage it, interact. In fact, as part also of the experiences AI has gathered, you find that when you send it, when you give the information, it will also request from you, do you want to give follow-up questions, and to ask you, do you want it in certain ways, because it has learned from experience that that there are different ways of skinning a cat. So those are my preliminary thoughts, and I look forward to interaction. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
We really appreciated your session, and we have some questions. I will be reading them out to you, sir. So
Okay.
the first person, that's Mr. Ephraim Adedoyin, asked, when I use AI to search for a particular case law, I noticed that the case law provided by AI is not found in our weekly law report index. So it should be why? Why can't he find the case law which is searched for using the AI tool?
Well, okay. Well, that's another problem, and this is one of the disadvantages of that we might have in the global south with artificial intelligence, because we are not massively um, in the digital space with our academic materials. I mean, most of the law journals in Nigeria, for example, I mean, they were just the manual. In fact, some of the publishers don't even have them anymore. So that doesn't. So we're not fully present, and that's why you're finding this drive into the African continent for collection of mass data in order to feed the tools. Because before you can develop an AI tool, there has to be enormous data. So if the Nigerian weekly law reports are not, well, now they are online, so they can steal from them, tap from them. So the tools will be restricted to what's available in the digital
This
space.
one, CPD
So
code.
you're going to find that if you ask for some subjects, even though you may have 50 articles from Nigerian academics on them, they may not show up because those articles are not in the digital space. Yes, and that's part of why we have to be careful even with the results we generate from AI, because they will have biases of the places from which the information was collected. So if our information was not present, that means our value system was not factored into the conclusion being presented by AI. So there are complications, and we can't go into all of them now, but that's part of the problem, that if the data, if our information is not digital, then AI won't access it and it will not be factored into the end product.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jaiyebo. The, the second question we have is, what are the consequences of the wrong use of AI in submissions before a law court?
Okay.
Mr. Jaiyebo.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Now, in the Mobile, Alabama case, and in the New York case, the lawyer was referred to disciplinary committee. So one has to verify. So again, we've not had that embarrassment here, but it's better for us to learn from the experiences of other people. If you generate your research on AI, if you cannot go through by yourself, pay somebody who has a good eye for detail to do the cross-checking for you. The hallucinations are a part of AI. So don't let the hallucinations get you into trouble. You have to verify, check. And if you find that it has given you too many references, you want to cut some off if you're not able to cross-check everything. Because we haven't explored the legal consequences within the Nigerian legal system, but some rules of professional conduct can be cited as having been violated. That you are expressing expertise in an area where you had no competence. That the issue of your duty of care to your duty of care to your client, your obligation to the court for truth. So there are various rules of RPC that could be cited against us if um, those issues are found out. In India, if there was a situation where even yeah, where the judge cited a case that was non-existent, and so that ruling had to be withdrawn. So it does have consequences. It's just better for us to be careful and to be diligent in doing a second review, even a third review of citations and references that are AI generated.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. The last question we have here is, apart from probably litigation lawyers, is AI a threat to the existence of legal practitioners, especially in drafting of documents and offering of legal opinions?
It is true. If you, as AI is becoming, is a public tool, so it is possible that there will be some individuals um, who can, if they can prompt the tools very well, they can get their advice from AI without necessarily having to go to lawyers. Yes, that's possible. But the truth is, there is still the emotional intelligence that the human brings into a situation. There is the experience of a lawyer that can still beat the AI tool. The AI tool will give you hard facts, as a matter of fact, but the human being can look at it from other perspectives. Except you really have, if you're very good with prompting, when it has given the hard facts, you can tell it that, well, why don't you get emotional about this situation and give me an advice from an emotional point of view. So if the public get very educated and very intelligent in the use of AI, yes, for some matters they might not require they might not require a lawyer. But as we lawyers also perfect ourselves in the use of AI, we will always be in demand. So AI will not necessarily eliminate us, but it might bring, but those who are competent in the area might find themselves generating a greater value. So clients might find them more reliable. And like I said, it's like me bringing together Professor Nwabweze, Professor Ijalaye, Professor Obilade, and telling them to give me and to tell me something about jurisprudence. That's what I do for again to hear. It brings in it gathers and garners the best and produces it. But if you are knowledgeable in that area, you can even give you further the depth you get into depends. It's not even so much the tools. A smartphone was stolen, and a boy was thrown in the barber shop. It was stolen, and the guy was thrown to cell for a few days. The barber shop had a CCTV camera. Nobody bothered to check the camera before they threw this boy there. So you can have a tool and not maximize or optimize its use. So your competence in the area of inquiry enables you to get the best out of AI. So, but if you're just marginally competent in the area, you're not able to interrogate it, you're not able to challenge it, you're not able to push it to the limit because it could be limitless if you have competence in the area in which you challenge. So, the more we get competent, the more value we generate from AI. So, we'll make more money from it rather than AI taking money away from us.
Thank you so much, sir. I want to thank you for your session and
Thank you.
for the overview on legal tools, legal AI tools, and how we, the lawyers, we should apply them in terms of legal research, brief writing, and also the caution to take so as to avoid issues of hallucination and